I think some of us, probably a lot of us, are just ready to get things underway, right? Like, we got the taste of Purdue basketball on Friday when they had their exhibition game against Kentucky. And now on Wednesday, the Boilermakers will play for the first time at Mackey Arena, hosting the University of Indianapolis, or UIndy, for their second exhibition game of the season before they get into regular season play. But let's face it, for most of us, we're just ready to see this team dive into the regular season. We're all ready for Tuesday, November 4th, when the Boilermakers host Evansville and begin officially this 2025-26 journey. Thanks for joining me. I am Dustin, the host of the Boiler Banter Podcast. I'm also a publisher and writer/reporter for Purdue Boilermakers on SI. That's si.com/college/Purdue. And you can also find me on Twitter at Dustin. And you can also find my page and a lot of other previous Boiler Banter podcasts on YouTube just simply by typing in my name, Dustin Schutte. So hope everybody is doing well as we creep into Halloween and then soon after. Now, this is a question I have. Before we dive into, and this is probably going to annoy some people, so just hit the fast forward button if you want to get into the Purdue basketball talk immediately. But I'm a big October guy, big fan of Halloween, love everything that goes into Halloween. I got a couple different Halloween mugs that I break out every October. And so, but as soon as November 1st hits, now I'm not break out the tree, start watching Christmas movies, traditional Christmas music. I'm not that kind of guy, but on November 1st, I do shift into Christmas mode. And I got to tell you, what that includes is listening to some Christmas jazz and then also breaking out my Christmas coffee mugs, holiday coffee mugs. It's just, why break it out for just 1 month? I should have previewed that by saying that I usually break out my Halloween stuff in September. So I like to get September and October for Halloween. I like to get November and December then for Christmas stuff. And then after that, it's just, whatever. It's back to the old days. But like, I don't understand the point of really just decorating, or I shouldn't say decorating because I'm not a decorator, but just getting into the holiday spirit, whatever it is, for just like 20 days, right? Like if you're going to do it, go for it. Go get 2 months out of it, right? Get 4 total months out of Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And because you got the other 8 months, if I can do math correctly, to live the ordinary life, right? Like, so anyway, deviating from that just slightly. Hope everybody's doing well. Wanted to dive into, we're going to talk a little bit about what we saw in that Kentucky game, because I think everybody's had time to kind of digest that 78-65 loss, kind of take a step back and say, okay, this is maybe, I don't want to say not what we expected, but I think that there was a little bit of pressing the panic button in the knee-jerk immediate reaction to that game. And I think that's common, right? Like your preseason number one, you have everybody on the roster. You expect to win every game, whether it's an exhibition or not. But what a lot of Purdue fans did remember is the fact that a couple of years ago, they went to Arkansas when they were a Final Four favorite, got beat. Last year, they went to Creighton, got beat, right? Really had I think last year was maybe a little bit more indicative of what the season was going to be, just because Purdue didn't really know what it had. And then on top of that, like, you can't take much away from that game, because then just 2 games later, you get Daniel Jacobson, who is out for the rest of the season with an injury. So point being is that take those games with a grain of salt. Yes, Purdue played its starters. Trey Kaufman-Wren played about 28 minutes in that game. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer both logged over 31 minutes in that game. So those 3 guys saw a lot of action. At the same time, you saw a lot of substitutions, right? Like you saw Jack Benner come in early. You saw Daniel Jacobson come in early. Jakari Harris came off the bench. You saw a lot of different lineups. We saw Antoine West in there for 2 or 3 minutes. We saw Liam Murphy at the end of the game in there for 2 or 3 minutes. So there was a lot of managing different lineups, throwing a lot of players out there for a couple minutes, not getting much of a rhythm, but just Matt Painter trying to get some guys accustomed to playing basketball and playing on the road. And by the way, like, sometimes that's going to happen in a real life game. you may, whether it's an injury, somebody's got to go back to the locker room, whether it's foul trouble, you may have to send in a Liam Murphy for 2 or 3 minutes. You may have to send in an Antoine West, and I know we don't know about the redshirt situation, but you may have to throw in an Antoine West for 2 or 3 minutes. Those guys need that experience to be kind of thrown to the wolves. And how do you handle yourself? And you don't have to come in and score 8 points right away, right? Like you don't have to, that doesn't have to be your contribution. Can you defend well? Can you work around the offense? Can you communicate? And can you play hard for whatever is asked of you? And I thought we saw that. I think you obviously saw that there were also some deficiencies on this team. I think number one is that Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough are still relatively new to each other, trying to learn each other's style, where they're going to be on the court. And remember, this is last year, the TKR did not have to deal with a big man on the floor, right? Like he was the big man. You can throw Caleb First in there, but Caleb's pretty mobile. He's a guy that can go around the perimeter. He wasn't much of an offensive threat. So when TKR got the ball, he could just kind of go to work. That's not necessarily the case. I think it will be in time, but right now Oscar Clough is a post player. He's not a 7'4", 300-pounder like Zach Edey was, but he is a guy that you're going to have to learn to kind of grow with, right? And so that was just, I think that was an interesting aspect of this game. I think that, there were a couple things that stood out, and that was, a lot of people talked in the offseason about Purdue's lack of athleticism and what's going to happen when they play athletic teams. Well, Kentucky's an athletic team, and I think they showed Purdue. I think Purdue saw some of its deficiencies there, where if a team that is athletic and long and can get out in transition, Purdue doesn't necessarily have the speed or the athleticism to compete with that. I think that speaks to the importance of getting rebounds and crashing the glass, both on the offensive and the defensive side, right? And so I think that you saw some deficiencies there. They got out-rebounded by 12. And again, Purdue shot 38% for that game. So a lot of those, like Kentucky should win that rebounding battle. But I think the concerning part, if you want to, use the air quotes and throw concerning around there, was the fact that it was Kentucky winning the offensive boards 10-7. You probably should clean some of that up. That was a big reason why Oscar Clough was brought in. You'd like to think Daniel Jacobson could help with you on the glass at least a little bit. And then again, with Oscar Clough, if he's not grabbing every rebound, he should be taking up space. Trey Kaufman-Renn should be taking up space, boxing out those guys, and maybe some of the guards, CJ Cox, Jakari Harris, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, maybe some of those guys can come in and swipe up some of those rebounds too. So those were a couple things, but again, I think it's important to remember that Purdue didn't scout for this game. They weren't really, I don't want to say they weren't prepared, because they go into these games just kind of focused on themselves and use it as a learning experience. And you lose by 13 points. You don't shoot particularly well. You didn't scout the game. I think there are a lot of things to take from this, and not to hit the panic button. I think there are still some people that maybe have hit the panic button already that are saying, hey, same issues as last year, having trouble to defend, struggled to rebound. I promise you it's going to look a lot different when they start scouting for opponents, right? Like they may have a lapse. They may have a game where they just don't look good offensively, defensively, whatever. That's basketball. That's a 31 game regular season schedule. Those things are going to happen. But by and large, this is going to be a team that looks much better when they have a chance to scout and know what they're going to go up against. So I just kind of wanted to put a bow on the Kentucky conversation. I think most people probably already had. Turning the page then to University of Indianapolis. And guys, this is not going to be a long podcast today. I'm going to talk about a few other things also going on in Purdue sports here at the end. But UIndy, if you want to call this a preview, we'll call it a preview. There are just a few things I'm looking for here, right? And that is, number one, again, has the chemistry between Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough, is that something they worked on in practice? Maybe getting a game underneath their belt, does that help them a little bit in terms of understanding and knowing where each other's going to be? I don't think you're going to solve all of those issues that they had in one game, but I think that you might see it make a difference when you actually have experience working in live game action. And, look, Matt Painter has said it. A couple of the other players have said it. Like, this is a team that has two really good 5-man lineups. So they've been able to simulate game action in practice. It is still a little bit different when you're playing an actual opponent. So I think that's one thing I'm looking for. I would expect to see a lot more of the bench in this one, because obviously, assuming things go as they should, which is Purdue probably, winning this game between 40 and 60 points, I can't imagine you're going to see a lot of Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn in the second half of this game. You may see a little bit more Oscar Clough just to get acclimated. You may see a little bit more CJ Cox, again, just to get acclimated. But I think you're going to see a lot of Jakari Harris. I think you're going to see a lot of Daniel Jacobson and Jack Benner, and probably throw Liam Murphy and Antoine West in that mix. I think obviously you're going to see a heavy dose of Omer Meyer in this game. And so, really just how do these guys mesh together, and how do they respond if they get heavy minutes? And I think they will. I don't know when they're going to come or what it's going to look like, but I think that those guys are going to get some heavy minutes. What can you do? What kind of basketball shape are you in? How well do you play your role? Those are kind of the things I guess I'm looking for in this game. And again, I don't know how much you're going to take from this, because University of Indianapolis is a Division II school. You're going to outmatch them. You're going to out-talent them. You're going to out-physical them. You're going to outsize them. So, but I think the one thing, if you're a Purdue fan, that you want to try to take away from this game is just the effort on the glass, right? I think if you look at this, Purdue should dominate the glass in this game, no problem, whether they're making shots or missing them. And so I don't want to say they weren't putting forth the effort on the glass. I don't think anything had to do with effort in that Kentucky game. But I think you just want to see a more complete effort in that regard, because that's the one thing that really crushed Purdue last season, was their inability to end possessions defensively by grabbing a defensive rebound, right? Like, they had enough trouble getting stops. They lacked rim protection last season. You got to get the defensive rebounds. And so I think that that's going to be a major point of emphasis in this one. Again, with the size, the athleticism, the talent, all in their favor, they should dominate the glass. But I think that's the one thing where, if you're wanting to try to take something away from this, and I don't even know that you can take that much, but just watch the effort on the glass. I think that that's going to be something to keep an eye on this week. The other thing that's going to be kind of interesting to me, Antoine West only played 3 minutes in that game against Kentucky, and it was at the end of the first half. So my big question then is going to be, how much does he play in this game against the University of Indianapolis? He's a freshman, so he can still play, but then is this a kid who's going to redshirt this season, right? Like, Purdue has already decided that Raleigh Burgess is going to redshirt. I think that's a smart idea. There just wasn't going to be the minutes available with Oscar Clough at the 5, Daniel Jacobson at the 5, and then Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 4, Jack Benner at the 4, and then it looks like, if you need him, Liam Murphy at the 4. Maybe this is a different conversation if Raleigh Burgess is healthy and doesn't have to undergo surgery. But I'm sure the fact that Jack Benner played the entire summer at that 4 position out of necessity, because Purdue needed him to give them a full lineup, I think that's what puts Jack Benner ahead of Raleigh Burgess. And so he just wasn't going to get a lot of minutes. So why not use this year to get back in shape? By the way, he looks like he's in pretty good shape. So when I say get back in shape, just getting in good basketball shape, getting good basketball condition. That was the thing that kind of slowed him down last season. You'd heard Matt Painter say at one point in a post-game press conference, he made the comment like, that E on his tank doesn't stand for elephant, right? Like, it stands for empty. And so he could play a good 2-3 minutes, but then he would be gassed. So get in that kind of condition, improve your game. You got one of the best big man developers in the country, and Brandon Brantley on your staff. He can develop his game there. We've already seen he can shoot from long range. So there are going to be minutes available for this kid with Liam Murphy gone, obviously with Trey Kaufman-Renn gone, with Oscar Clough gone. There are going to be minutes available for Raleigh Burgess to get. So I think this is a great idea for him to redshirt. Probably just wasn't going to get any time on the floor this season. Save a year. You still have 3 seasons beyond this year. But then again, to bring it back to Antoine West, how much does Purdue think they can utilize his skill set this year? Now, the fact that he only played 2 or 3 minutes against Kentucky is an indicator to me that he's probably not going to see a lot of playing time unless an injury or foul trouble occurs, something along those lines. And that's, to me, I think right now, Antoine West's greatest asset is on the defensive side. I think he can guard multiple positions. I think he's a good perimeter defender. And again, this is just from practice and scrimmages and highlights and things like that. So it's not like I've seen him play a 40-minute basketball game and can tell you these things with the utmost certainty, right? I'm not going to try to pull the wool over your eyes there. But what I can tell you is from what I've seen, he's a high-volume shooter. And first of all, Purdue does not need that this year. He can be a Carson Edwards where he can like he might miss 3 or 4 shots. He might then make the next 5 or 6. Purdue doesn't need that. They've got enough offense this year. They don't really need that. So the question was going to be, does he produce enough defensively? Does he bring you something that the other guys at the guard spot that they don't possess? And I think, again, based off of one exhibition game, I think that answer is no. I think, and it's not that Antoine West is not a skilled player. This is just basically saying, we like what Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Omer Meyer can do on the defensive end. We have enough faith and trust in those guys that they can get the job done. So for me, it's really hard to see Antoine West carving out any serious minutes again. So again, why not take the redshirt year, have all 4 years of eligibility remaining after this season? And look, I get it. Like, you want to be a part of this team. You want to play minutes for a team that has a chance to go to the Final Four, that has a chance to win a national championship. But I think in the long term, it's better for Antoine West to maybe sit this year out, take a red shirt. But we'll see. If he plays 20 minutes and scores 14 points and gets 3 or 4 steals, maybe we're having a different conversation. I just don't know. I feel like Friday night against Kentucky was a better indicator of who we're going to see on the floor and with what frequency. And I just don't know if the minutes are going to be there for Antoine West. And it's kind of a similar situation with Liam Murphy, right? Like, it seems to me like Jack Benter has locked up the backup 4 spot. And Matt Painter has said in the past, like, we like Trey Kaufman-Renn 30 to 32 minutes, right? Like somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't remember the exact minutes, but I'll give it a little grace. I'll say 28 to 32, but I think it was 30 to 32, somewhere in that ballpark. So that means Jack Benter's playing probably 8 to 12 minutes per game if he's having an off night, or if by chance you need an extra shooter that you feel like Benter isn't providing you with, then maybe you turn to Liam. Because he is of that bunch. He's the sharpshooter. He's the guy from distance that can knock down a couple threes. So I don't know that we're going to see a lot of Liam Murphy this season. I think there are going to be instances when he gets to play for a stretch, or if Purdue offers something that if Purdue sees something in another team's in an opponent defense that they like, that they think Murphy can exploit, then I think we'll see more of that. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Liam and Antoine West log some minutes in this game just to see what they can do in live game situations. So, again, those are just a few things I'm looking for. I don't know that there's a necessity to deep dive into any of this stuff until we get into the regular season and see how this team plays against Evansville. So I'm going to close the book on the UIndy quote-unquote preview for that, and move forward and just talk about a few other things. The women's side, on the women's side, a 118-42 win in an exhibition game over Purdue Northwest, which, again, Purdue doing what it's supposed to do as the Big Ten team in that game, right? But I was impressed. And I know this team struck in. I use the term "this team" loosely because it's not even close to the same team that Katie Gerald's had a season ago. You've got Lana McCarthy back. You've got Kendall Puryear back. You've got Madison Layden-Zay, who came back for a 5th season after she took last year off. And then her sister, McKenna Layden. Those are the only 4, if you want to count Madison. Those are the only 4 players returning. 3 of them were from last year. Madison has had time in the program. You brought in 3 freshmen, 2 of which are going to probably play significant minutes for you this season, and then a whole bunch of transfers. And what I was impressed with thoroughly and legitimately was how well that group played together. Like, they passed the ball extremely well. They were able to push tempo. They knew where each other was going to be. And to be able to manufacture that level of trust and that level of chemistry early in the season, I think is a really good sign. Now, again, Purdue is playing a Division II opponent in that situation. So what can you really take from it? But I think that you can already see, like, when you have willing passers, when you have a team, when you have players that are wanting to play team ball, Tara Day was fantastic in every facet of the game. She could score, she could pass, she could rebound. Ela Karsh is going to be really good. She handles the ball really well. She can push tempo. She was out creating steals around the perimeter, knocked down a couple triples. Madison Layden-Zay, you can already see the importance she has to this team, her ability to move without the basketball, create space, and she's already made more than 200 career three-pointers. She was effective in that game. The three post players, and Kendall Puryear's basically on a snap count, right? Like, she's on a minutes limit because of an injury that she's still recovering from. So they didn't want to push her too hard, but she was thoroughly dominant. And when she was on the floor for those couple minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point she's the starting 4 or 5, wherever they want to put her, probably the 5 spot. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she's the starter, because she just looks so dominant. And if you have Lana McCarthy as your backup, that's pretty darn good. Either one of those two girls could start. Avery Gordon, really 6'7". She caught the ball, knew what to do with it. Turns, puts it in the basket. Turns, puts it in the basket. But I think the best facet of her, not the best facet, her best facet is playing in the post. The thing that surprises you and the thing that you look at and go, oh, I didn't know she had that in her bag, was at one point in that game, she was running down the floor to get a transition layup. Katie Geralds wants to play with speed, and she has said, like, if the bigs want the ball, they're going to have to sprint down the floor. She had no problem with that, and that's a really positive sign. Purdue's bigs can run. They looked more like they were playing with more instinct than they did a season ago. And again, I don't want to get too excited about an exhibition game, but I do think that there are some promising signs there. They shot 63. I'm trying to do this off my head. I think they shot around 63% from the floor, 45% from three-point range. This is a team that really struggled to shoot. They got into the painted area. They were either able to finish at the rim, draw contact, or kick it out for an open three. Defensively, for 3 quarters, the team played really well. In that second quarter, they kind of lost their perimeter defense a little bit. They kind of got eaten up by screens, wouldn't fight through them. I think that's a little bit that could be problematic, especially when you're doing that against a Division II team. So when you have Kentucky in the non-conference, and then obviously you go into Big Ten play, what's that going to look like? Because you can't just die on those screens. You're going to have to fight through them. Whether you go under, over, whatever the case might be, you're going to have to find a way to either fight through it, switch off, whatever you're going to have to do. But you can't die on the screen, because teams in this conference will feast on you if you do that. So I think there's a healthy dose of positive, and you look at this team, and to me, Sage Stahl was outstanding. I think she finished the game with 4 points. The stats evaporated as soon as the game was over. Don't know what happened to him. Just disappeared, poof, like into thin air. I don't know what happened to him. I do know she had 11 rebounds. I think she only had 4 points, maybe 6. She had 11 rebounds. She was the Energizer Bunny out there. And she kind of gave that spark to everybody else on the team. And I got to tell you that last year's team did not have that. And that's not to say last year's team didn't play hard, didn't give effort. It was just different. Like Sage Stahl, I think she would be perfectly fine finishing a game with 25 rebounds and going 0 for 4 from the floor, right? Like, she was just crashing the glass. She's not the tallest player on the court. She's 6'1". She's got good size, but she's not the tallest player on the floor. But she seemed to be the most aggressive. And again, Purdue really has lacked that in recent seasons. So to see that kind of effort from her in an exhibition game, I think is a promising sign. The final thing I'll say on this, because again, it's hard, whether it's men's or women's, to take too much from these exhibition games, especially when you do what you're supposed to. Purdue's non-conference schedule last year was a gauntlet. They played Notre Dame, they played Kentucky, they played South Carolina. a lot of really talented teams in the non-conference. It was just brutal. That team had no chance to get any confidence. They had no chance to really get healthy, and they were hit by the injury bug hard. Excuse me. This team's non-conference schedule, they have a road game against Kentucky. That is the only power opponent they're going to play. And some people might complain about that. Some people may not like that. For a program that is trying to take baby steps to get back up and crawl back into the NCAA tournament conversation, for a team that was 10-19 a year ago, you got to manufacture wins. You got to build confidence within your team. And I think they're going to have the ability to get some, I don't know that you can call them quality wins in terms of against the opponent, but a chance to start with a really good record, take some momentum into conference play, and maybe that's something you can build off of and maybe look to try to get closer to that 500 mark when Big Ten play comes about. Final thing we're going to talk about, and I do apologize. I haven't done a football podcast in a while, but guys, when I have done football podcasts, they have not been received very well. Even some of the stories we're writing about. Look, I think Barry Odom is the right guy for the program. I think there are some really positive things you've seen from this team in terms of how they play offense, their play design. I think the defense is struggling. I think there are going to be some hard questions about personnel and what a roster needs to look like to be competitive in the Big Ten after this season. But I think that when you look at this, the way this team compares to last season, I think it's light years ahead, but this program still has a long way to go. They'll play Michigan on Saturday night in the Big House under the lights at night. Maybe they can pull off an upset. Maybe they can surprise somebody, but we'll see how that goes. But that's my 2 cents on the football side. The volleyball team needs a major shout out. And I know I've done this throughout the year, and Craig Bowers and I appreciate him having me on the Boilers in the Stands podcast to talk with Dave Shondell, Bianca Lulich, and Natalie Moravec from the Purdue volleyball team, because they are in the midst of a special season. They are 17-3. They are tied for second in the Big Ten standings currently. Just phenomenal. Everybody's talked about the offseason. I don't want to talk about it anymore. What Dave Shondell has done with this specific group, they are 17-3. This time last year, they were 16-4. A little bit of that has to do with competition, but not much. This is a good team. They had wins over 7 ranked opponents on their resume. Right now, they're considered to be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. That means they'd be hosting the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament at Holloway Gymnasium. What a home court advantage that would be. It's just phenomenal to me because of the way this team was perceived was they are a bunch of misfits. Dave Shondell's a good coach. They'll probably be in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten. They may be a top 25 team. We don't expect that much. This isn't going to be the Purdue team we initially thought it was going to be. Surprise. Purdue is a top 10 volleyball team right now, 17-3. They've had Kenna Woolard has won the Player of the Week award, the Big Ten Player of the Week award twice. She's been National Player of the Week. Ryan McAleer, I think she's been Defensive Player of the Week twice. Maybe it's just once, but I believe it's twice. This past week, Grace Heaney went off. She was Big Ten Player of the Week. Twice now, Taylor Anderson has been the Big Ten Setter of the Week. This team, the way Taylor Anderson is one of the best setters. She's maybe the second best setter in the Big Ten behind Bergen Riley at Nebraska. Kenna Woolard is maybe, I don't know if there's an award for most improved college volleyball player, but she is in that conversation. She has been phenomenal. Grace Heaney, the things she's been able to do on the opposite side, a year coming off of injury. She didn't play a big role as a freshman. She had to sit out last year because of an injury. She comes back and she's been one of Purdue's best players, most productive players. Cash Anderson comes in from Michigan State. She was playing with a hurt shoulder last season. She comes in, gets healthy. In that 5th set against Minnesota, by the way, I forgot to mention this because I got too excited to talk Purdue volleyball. Purdue sweeps Illinois on Friday, 3-0. They reverse sweep Minnesota in a match that looked very similar to the reverse sweep against UCLA. Came out, just really didn't have any energy. No, I don't want to say no motivation. They had no energy. kind of lacked concentration, just kind of a lackluster ho-hum kind of looked like for the first 2 sets. Something snapped in that third set, got it going. And Akasha Anderson is the reason Purdue won that 5th set, despite being down to Minnesota 9-3 to start. Dior Charles has had really nice moments. Bianca Lulick has had some big moments. Purdue's Julia Kane has been excellent serving. Sienna Foster and Rachel Williams have been excellent behind the service line this season. Like Purdue, and the one thing I'll say too is this, it may not be in terms of the roster, and when you look at the court, the most talented group, but it is the most connected group outside of maybe Nebraska that I think you'll see. This group, they like each other. They communicate well with each other. They have a lot of fun playing volleyball. So even if the wins weren't there, this team would be so fun to watch because of how they play the game and how much they enjoy being around each other. It's even better when the wins are piling up, right? So you just have to continue to admire what Dave Shawn did. To me, and I know Nebraska's undefeated. They're probably going to finish the season undefeated, the number 1 team in the country. That's impressive stuff to do that. Danny Busboom-Kelly in her first season as the head coach. She also had a lot of returning players on that team. And that's not to take anything away, but in terms of the coaching job, I feel like Dave Shawn does your Big Ten Coach of the Year. At the very least, if nothing else, those two should share it, right? Like you can't dismiss what Dave has done with this year's team. It is just to not only get that team to play the way they're playing, but to get the right pieces in, to get the right players in with the right personalities and everybody having fun. And it's one of the most surprising things I think I've seen in the history of me covering Purdue exclusively, which is about 3 years now. But in my professional career as a sports writer, and this, it entails me covering the entire Big Ten, it's just been one of the most fascinating things to see. And so that program deserves a major shout out, and can't wait to watch them again. This weekend, I believe they'll play, if I remember correctly, it's Michigan State on Friday and then Michigan on Sunday, both on the road. I think they are in the Mitten State, and I think it's Michigan State on Friday, Michigan on Sunday. If only I had a device or some notes, that might have made this easier. So we'll see what we see out of Purdue basketball against University of Indianapolis. But the fun thing is, guys, next week, and please, if you're going to be in West Lafayette, please hit me up, because I'm going to be basically spending my entire week there. On Monday, the November 3rd, the women's basketball season opens up against Fairleigh Dickinson. Yes, that Fairleigh Dickinson. Tuesday, Purdue men's basketball season tips off against Evansville. Thursday, the women are back in action, and they'll play Eastern Illinois. Friday, the men play Oakland. Welcome back to Mackey Arena, Greg Campy. Also on Friday, the Purdue volleyball team will host Penn State, another ranked opponent. Saturday, Purdue football hosts Ohio State. And then in the evening, the Purdue volleyball team will play Iowa. So I believe I'm going to be at all of those games minus the Purdue-Penn State volleyball match, because as it stands right now, the times are just too close. I've got to cover I've got to cover the men's basketball thing. So, but I do plan to be at both the football game and then the volleyball match on Saturday. So if you're in West Lafayette, say, hey, Dustin, introduce yourself. Would love to meet some of you guys. Again, Boiler Banter Podcast, and you can find all of my written content on Purdue Boilermakers on SI. I really appreciate your support, and should be a fun couple weeks here as the fall season winds down and we get into closer to that postseason, but then the winter season sports begin up here in just a few days. So thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you all real soon.